Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased to introduce you to my next guest. This is Kate McCauley. We've known each other for a couple of years, and we've watched each other's businesses grow. Kate is a mindset and performance specialist. She's a keynote speaker, a podcast host, and founder of The Champion Within. With 25 years of experience in education and coaching, she now helps individuals and teams, from athletes and students to educators and business leaders, build confidence, crush goals, and unlock their potential. Her work blends science-backed tools with real-life strategy to make mindset a game changer for success. And I am Lucy Gable, integrative leadership trainer, author, speaker, and professor. And this is Leadership, Life, Health, and Happiness. Welcome, Kate. I'm so happy to have you. We've been talking about getting together for a while now, and I've watched your business grow. Congratulations right now on all the success you're having.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. It is really just an honor to be here. Like you said, I don't know how long ago we met, but likewise, I've been watching you and been inspired. So it is really going to be great to chat with you today.
So just so the audience knows, this is the first time we're talking in a bit. So what you're hearing from us is real enthusiasm and surprise, if there is some.
Absolutely.
Kate, what I know of you and what I want to bring out is something about your journey. And I'm going to let you start with the journey you want to share first. But I will say that Kate was a teacher and had a very interesting event occur while she was teaching that helped her to decide to leave. And now she does something kind of related, but on a different level. So whatever story you want to give us first, Kate, share about yourself.
Lucy, when I was hearing you talk about my bio, I was sitting and nodding. I'm so busy often and I forget all of the things that I get to do. So thank you for that beautiful voice of yours, just sharing that. I really loved hearing it. I'm just going to own a little bit of that at first. And then when you just said, what story do you want to share? There are so many stories, but I think I'm going to start with one. I think what you're probably talking about is a moment that happened 6 years prior to my resignation. I spent 20 years as an educator in the public school system outside of Philadelphia. I absolutely loved what I did. The school community still is a very important place for me. I deeply love the students, the staff within that school community, and where they've now become their own people in their careers all over the world, really. That event, 6 years prior to my resignation, is what I refer to as the long beginning of my exit strategy. It actually took 6 years until I decided to resign, because I really was trying to fix the problems within those school walls that were not really something that I was able to fix. So I leave back to school night conferences. And for teachers who are listening, these are often boring nights where you are sitting. And in my school district, we didn't have a lot of attendance from the parents at the high school level anyway. I will admit I left probably about 5 minutes early, but it should be noted that my principals left before me. So it's not like I was the first one leaving. When I stepped out into the parking lot, I heard screaming. As an educator, you start to be able to differentiate the type of screaming from teenagers that's fooling around or just joking, play fighting type stuff, as we call it, and the type of screaming that is fear. This was that second type. It was fear. I knew right away, as every step I took, that something serious was happening in the parking lot. I started to worry, because these are my kids. Really, I truly love them as my kids, still do. And as I stepped further into the parking lot, I realized that there was a boy on a bike pointing a gun at another student and his mom, who were crouched down and screaming behind two SUV doors that were propped open. It was like a scene from a movie. I don't know if it was my teacher voice or what happened, but I started screaming some choice words that teachers don't typically say. And he turned in my direction, either from fear or that loud teacher voice, and swung the gun with him, pointing it in my direction. And to this day, I really don't think that he was intending to shoot me, although, of course, that was a possibility. But as I was dialing 911, still screaming some choice words, he decided to put the gun in his pocket and he rode off on his bike. And we later found out that he was a 14-year-old kid on his bike. They picked him up. He actually tossed it on a lawn. The gun was fully loaded. Yeah, that changed the trajectory of everyone's life, their life, really. My life, the kid on the bike, that student. And I didn't resign the next day, although people question why didn't I, but I had children of my own. I needed to pay bills. So that was the beginning, the long beginning of where I am now.
A long beginning. Can I ask the obvious question, which is, why did you wait so long? What happened there?
When you are an educator, at least for me, you start to think, what else can I possibly do with this degree? I would be Googling, what can I do with my teaching degree? I interviewed at other places. I was offered jobs in other school districts, but as an educator in the public school system, at least here in the Pennsylvania area, prior to the teacher shortage, I was at around 15, 16 years at this point. I guess I was probably around 14, 15 years. So if I left, I would be going to a year one salary. So I would lose all of my years as an educator, which means I would take a big salary cut, and salary isn't that high to begin with. So I wasn't thinking that is something I wanted to do. I also oddly became in what I would probably say is comfortable in this trauma, this atmosphere where I was experiencing trauma, but didn't realize that I was experiencing trauma. And yeah. So I was comfortable in there thinking, can I even be in a different type of a school district? And I also had a guilt that I wanted to fix the problem there. I'm tough enough. I can do this. I want to help these kids. I want to be here with the staff. So I think that played a role. There was fear, comfort to, not be able to leave. And so then the pandemic hit. I'm home teaching 2020. Our school district happened not to go back at all. Lots of reasons behind that. That's a whole podcast episode in itself. And the spring of 2021, we're still home on the computers. Our students never went back into any hybrid situation where pretty much every other school in the whole country did. And long story short, my district messed up some paperwork because of state testing. And I had to make choices for my own children at home. And I said, I'm not coming in for 8 days of fake testing. And you're going to do some shady stuff and lie to the state. I will teach from home instead of my office. And they told me no. I said, I'm not bluffing. I'm going to retire, or I'm going to resign. And they fought with me a little while. And I ended up resigning and bet on myself. And I had started my company as almost a little side hustle. That's it. That's, how I got here.
What do you think out of all of that you said would be the most pertinent message to give to people today, just out of that story?
To bet on yourself.
Bet on yourself. Mm-hmm. Tell me more.
Bet on yourself that you're exactly where you're meant to be. My youngest guy has a uniquely beautiful brain. My youngest son, Ryan, he has auditory processing, ADHD, dyslexia. He had a speech delay. He's awesome. That uniquely beautiful brain was really what started my journey in learning about how the brain works and neuroscience and visualization, breath work, all the things I do now that I get to do for other people. That is why I bet on myself, because it was working for my son. I was doing it as an educator. When I was in the suspension room, I asked my principal, and I was doing these things with my athletes, with those students who were in school suspension. I bet on myself when that human resource director said, you can't resign. I'm going to tell the next employer what you did here. You will never work in education again, is what he said to me.
Goodness.
Yeah, and that was something I had to heal from because my heart was broken. I spent 20 years in this place. I mean, I gave so much, which I do not regret. I loved this job. I was good at that job. And when he said that to me, I bet on myself in that moment. And he said, where are you going to work? And I said, I'll give you her cell phone number. And I spit out my cell phone number. I had no clue what I was going to do. There was no business plan, but I bet on myself and it has paid off 10 times. So that's the lesson I would say I would tell people. It's scary, but that you should bet on yourself.
It is scary, right? Any change we make is scary. Any newness, it's a big void, right? What are we stepping into?
Absolutely.
So now you're here, and what are you doing now?
So many things, Lucy. When I first started this business journey, I thought, I'm an educator. I don't know how to own a business. So I signed up for all of the courses and the free things, the paid things. Show me how to be a business owner. And many of these people were wonderful mentors, but all of them kept saying, you can only help one group. It just didn't sit well within my soul or on my heart, probably because I am an educator. And when I walked into a room, there was a room of sometimes 40 kids. That's the district I taught in. That was typical for a roster for me. And it was never 40 of the same kid sitting there. Just like my 3 kids at home are not the same 3 individuals. That being said, it is mindset what I do for everyone. So I get to work with educators. I get to work with student athletes. I get to work with students. I go into big corporations as a keynote, a consultant. I, in short, help them learn how to win. And the win stands for what is needed. I talk with them and say, what's the problem? What do you need to do? This is what I'm an expert in: mindset, visualization, breath work, mirror work. If I don't know, I bring in someone else with me. I often get to collaborate with people. And it really all comes back to mindset. But I get to love a lot of different groups of people, just like I did as a teacher.
Okay. So yeah, I noticed you do a lot on mindset. And same, in my area too, it's just so amazing how really everything comes down to what you're thinking, the decisions you make, the way you act, how you respond, how you present yourself in front of others, whether or not you win or lose the game, the contract. I mean, it's crazy, right? Do you have any success stories that you want to share of people that you work with or teams that you've worked with lately?
Let me talk about a cheerleading squad that's popping into my brain. They're a high school team. I went in and I just had a session with them, a big group session. We talked about where they are now. They were having issues where they were competing against each other. They're putting girls up in lifts and they're laughing. And if someone falls, they're like, oh, well, our group didn't fall, which is a really sad thing to hear, but very common within females in the athletic arena, unfortunately, that they're competing against each other within their own team. We had a really deep session where we looked at our strengths within ourselves. There were some tears shed. It was very powerful, but they did the work. They handed off roses to each other, telling each other, this is what I see in you, because sometimes we don't see our own strengths. And you could just feel the energy in the room. The booster parents who invested in this program quite literally wouldn't let me leave the room until we booked the next session, which was, I was laughing and thinking, you're kidding, right? But they were like, no, no, no. We're going to book you before you leave because this was just really impactful for our girls, because that's what it's all about, the ripple effect. It helps with cheerleading. They went to a competition, scored top. I think the JV got first place in something. And that's the thing. I'm not a cheerleader, so it has nothing to do with cheerleading. I'm not a swimmer. I work with swimmers, but it's everything to do with, like you said, the mindset. So it has ripple effects. They were telling me this is helping in school. This is helping at their jobs. So that cheer team, and there's so many clients that really stand out, but I have seen them grow. So they're really somebody that jumps into my brain, and it really has to do with those coaches and their parents. That I call it the village mentality. That's another piece.
But the piece that you brought in about women competing against each other, where I am today is working with corporations and companies and business women, leaders, women. There's a lot of unnecessary competition between women I've seen in the workplace.
Yeah.
So, and we know it starts young. So what you did for those girls was an incredibly valuable learning experience. And you said something else that they went on with you a few different times and they did some other things and they grew.
Right.
Can you share a little bit about growth in that area? What did they learn? Growth.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, I would like to add to what you said about the competition within women. I see that. And I also see the other side. I definitely see the competition. When I first started this business, there were many women who did not want to say, well, this is how we get our speaking engagements. This is what we do. However, I do also want to highlight that my first really big successful things, and some of the things I'm doing now, are because of strong women who have empowered me and we've collaborated together. So I think that if we highlight more that empowered women empower women, we will see more of that, because when we knock each other down, nobody is going to rise higher, because we need each other. And this is nothing against any male in the industry. Many of men have been supportive. I have 3 brothers. My dad's like, get it, girl. My husband, I have 2 boys, my daughter as well. But I do want to say that because my first speaking engagement was because a former teacher, a woman, recommended me in a room where I wasn't even there. She mentioned my name. Nice. So I think it's important to say that. But I have been on calls where I'm networking and these women are very cutthroat. And I think you are missing out, because if you just shift it a little bit, I think this feminine energy can be not only fierce, but also soft, where if you collaborate. So I just wanted to make sure that I say that, because
go there. Absolutely. That's huge. I love that. That's emphasizing your unique qualities, whatever they are.
I feel like some women, like you were saying, in the corporate space, feel they have to take on this masculine persona, I guess we'll call it. And maybe some people, this is their true, genuine self. But I have found that when you lean into your feminine, fierce self and you collaborate with other women and you think there's plenty for us to all be successful, the success multiplies. It's just my point of view.
Woo, I love it. Yeah.
So, but let me go back to that growth to answer your question, because I just couldn't leave that part out. The growth that this team saw, something, for example, their coach sent me a message on a Sunday morning. So I hadn't even showered yet. My hair is up in a messy bun. And their coach, Angela, sent me a text message. She said, Kate, with all these exclamation points. I said, Angela. I have no idea why she's texting me, but I love this woman. So I said, are you good? No message back. I'm like, now I'm starting to get worried. It's a Sunday morning and I have no idea why she's texting me. Maybe 20 minutes later, she says, we have a choreographer who's here, flew in. We're practicing for our competition, but the girls, they need you. They are so stressed, and we know what happens when they have their visualization session. Is there any way during the break you could jump on a Zoom and do a visualization with them? I said, absolutely. Let me have, some time. Anyway, we get on and I created a visualization for them so that they could focus on absorbing this wonderful choreographer's wisdom that he brought to them, because they were putting up a wall of we're not good enough type of energy, and they needed to own their greatness. So they not only were open to receiving it, because that's the thing, you have to build this rapport with them that they can receive this and say, this is possible, because you can't see inside your brain. At first, people are like, what's this chick talking about? With this mindset stuff. People aren't sure. It's woo-woo a little bit, but I do bring a Philly, keeping it real vibe that helps people, I think, when we start this. So we had the visualization. They went back. They actually were on my podcast, their captains and their coaches, and talked about how it was a completely different afternoon after having the visualization. And they started putting it in. Their coaches, I'm not exactly sure how they put it into the routines of their practice, but they gave them time where they could visualize on their own. And it's not for every girl. Some girls love it. Some girls like to close their eyes and lay down. Some girls just want to put some music in and just breathe and just see themselves, which is okay. You have to make it uniquely yours. But I think that was a really big area of growth. They actually adopted a slogan called Hold the Rope. During our first session where we're handing those roses out, I told a little story about who would be the people to hold the rope for you. It has to be your teammates when you're having a bad day. And this is not just about cheerleading. This is walking down the hallway. This is you broke up with your best friend, your boyfriend, whatever, and your mom's yelling at you, whatever. You need people to hold the rope for you. And they made little ropes, tied them on their cheer bags so that they could mentally see that and connect. They made shirts of hold the rope. They really adopted this mantra. And by the end, they were talking about holding the rope for each other. And I truly believe, I'll have to see what happens, but I think that if I saw some of these girls, which I hope I really do, 10 years from now, that they would still be holding the rope if they had to show up for each other, if something happened, good or bad. And I really hope that I get to see that.
I love that.
Yeah,
It applies to everyone.
it really does.
Every group, every team, everywhere.
We talked about how their team is a brand, and they tilted their head, what are you talking about? I said, you are really their Sun Valley is their school, Sun Valley High School cheer team. You are a brand. You represent yourself first, your family, your school, this cheer team. And you need to hold the rope for each other. When someone has their head down, you need to put their, crown keeper, keep that crown in their head and hold the rope, because if one of you lets go, somebody's going to fall off, and that's somebody falling out of their, cheer like stance or whatever they're in. It's not going to be as strong as if we're all holding the rope for each other. And that can be in cheer, that can be in the hallway, that can be, I went to their homecoming game. One of the girls was sick, and it was really sad because she was a senior. She's sitting on the sideline, and all of the girls were really representing hold the rope. Every time they had a little break, they would come over. Are you good? Do you need a Gatorade? The little things where I didn't know them last year, but that wasn't really their team dynamic. It was more, I need to look good for me. And that happens a lot in the workplace, in sports. And I'm telling you that you don't win in life or in sports when you're just focused on me, 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 me. It's just not going to take you as far as you could go.
Just inviting my audience to continue to think about this. This is not just about this one team or
Right.
girls. I feel this conversation is humanity-wide, even though we're using this as an example, So you help them to see that it's not just about me and am I good enough to receive the information? You turned it to, wow, how about we just absorb what this person, wow, you've got this great opportunity and we're going to absorb this and get all we can from it, which is a completely different mindset.
We also lean into, related to this team, everyone I work with, that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You're not going to hit every pose that you want. You're not going to land every gig as a speaker or that presentation. And that's feedback. Failure is research. You have to look at it as a gift. Every single time I do something, whether it's this cheer team or big, small group, whatever, you have to realize that it is part of the process. I didn't get to where I am right now without a ton of failure. And I had to tell them that from the get-go. It's not, I don't sell magic beans. It is, I tell everyone I didn't ride here on a rain or a unicorn, with sunshine and rainbows all around me. It's a journey. And I think that is helpful. We want to do well. We want to please others, sometimes too much. And to say it's okay to fail. You can actually learn more when you fail.
And that's another great point, because not too long ago, people were very, very afraid to show any failures in public, at work, in front of anyone else. We always have to hide it, cover it up, which is a really horrible thing to do because it makes us look worse, right? So what are you finding the tone is out there when you go out to speak to different groups about failure? Is it becoming more of okay, we understand this is part of being human, or?
I don't think that has become easier, but I think that we are accepting more. And that if you can show people there is a way to navigate through with the EFT, with the visualization, with the breath work, all those different tools that I teach, I think then people are a little bit more likely to say, okay, I'm willing to try that because you're giving me a tool to navigate through. And then they start to open up a bit.
So you're saying you provide people with a lot of techniques on, okay, what happens when we fail? And how do we well, you just said it, get through it to the other side
Right.
where we feel okay to try again.
What lesson did we learn? What research? I often describe it as a gift that we receive. And if, your aunt is giving you a gift and one aunt wraps it up beautifully with a bow and you open it, everything's perfect. And then someone else gives you something, it's like wrapped in a Target bag and it's a hot mess, but there's something great inside there. And, it's feedback. It's a gift, that failure. You have to look at it that way. It's not always wrapped in that pretty bow. Sometimes it's a hot mess thrown at you in a Target bag and they just picked it up on the way to the party, right? But there could be something great inside there if you let yourself experience and then navigate through. And everything is figure outable. So there is a tool. You just have to let yourself be open to experience it. I think that's tough. It's tough to do. It's not easy.
Yeah, there's a lot of people right now going through life shifts in many different ways. So to understand this is going to be key for them to have the right mindset to try and fail, start something new, look into the void like you did. So I do want to step back to that because you did jump from something that you did, like you said, for 20 years and you were good at it, into something completely new. Can you share maybe a lesson learned or whatever you think is best to share with the audience about that transition?
What a great question. So leaving education and stepping into what I do now, a lesson that I learned. Oh, so many lessons here.
I'm sure.
I think a really good lesson that I've learned and that other people can learn a little quicker by watching my journey is that you can figure it out on your own. But if you are willing to ask people for help, you will get there quicker. However, you also need to be willing to take what works for you and send some of it out the window politely. Because for the beginning part of this journey, I really thought, I can do all of this by myself. I was in this tough job and I did all of these things for all of these years. I can figure all of this out. And I was figuring all of it out. But once I started to allow other people, I had coaches of my own, mentors. One, I was less stressed. Two, I saw a different perspective. I let myself receive that feedback, which wasn't always easy to hear, but I did need it and I wanted it and I was able to grow from it. So I think the lesson is ask for the help, learn from those people who have walked the path before you, but take what works for you and be willing to politely say, well, that's not for me. Because I had a speaker coach, for example, who I really think is amazing, adamantly said, no, you cannot do it this way. You have to wash, repeat, wash, repeat. And I said, no, I am not going to do it that way. That is not how I did it as a teacher. This is how I'm going to do it my way, a little bit different. And it's working for me. So, but I learned so much from her and I still do. I love her. But I was nervous about doing that because she's on really big stages making a lot of money. And I thought, am I making the wrong decision? But I, again, had to bet on myself. So I think asking that, but then betting on yourself still. That's a couple lessons, Lucy, all in there. I was reflecting, I think, on my own journey there.
They're all so good. And I love how, for me, what came out was you're listening to yourself. And we can call that intuition. A lot of people don't even know how to tap into that. But when you're listening to, that doesn't really feel right for me, instead of pushing to do what someone's telling you to do, to go do what you feel is right.
I spent 20 years in a place where I was doing great things and I loved it. And I would say the last probably 5 to 6 years, it wasn't feeling good. And I didn't want to go back to something that wasn't feeling good because I had the shoulds and the supposed tos. I wasn't going to do that again. Yeah.
And your example of listening to those who have made it and also allow yourself to put your own spin on it. Anyway, that's part of what makes us all unique and special, right? We can't be exactly like anyone else. I love that. You were talking about working with other people and allowing people to help you in your growth as you journey from one career to the next. And so that makes me think again about a village mentality. And you did say that it really made a difference for you with your son. I wonder if you want to expand on that a little bit.
I would love to expand on that. The village mentality is something that is so deeply close to my heart. My son Ryan, as I mentioned, has that uniquely beautiful brain. The reason why Ryan is successful today as an eighth grader is because of every single person. I'm going to get emotional, Lucy, even thinking about this, but every single person in his village, and his village is me, my husband, his siblings, but also his teachers, the people that have coached him, his stage crew director at the middle school. This village of people weren't always sure about Ryan's uniquely beautiful brain. So I had to be the advocate. Ryan did the visualization. Ryan was the first kid that was part of me as the guide on the side. I learned all of these things and became certified long before that gun was pointed at me. I did that when Ryan was in probably first grade. I started these things because I had to figure out how Ryan was going to navigate the world. I had no idea that I would end up here, although I was exactly where I was meant to be every single step of the way. And as we traveled through together, and he's going to high school next year, I kid you not, in first grade, second grade, third grade, he could not read THE as the word the. Wilson Reading Program, his educator, Miss Lauren Aaron, phenomenal, part of this village. All of these different things, the visualization, he does emotional freedom tapping with me, breath work. He did yoga with me when he was a kid. We have a mantra we say on the way to school. There's, we do self-talk and mirror work. Sometimes he rolls his eyes at me, but that's part of it. The village mentality, though, is when I was talking with the teachers and our family, people who were involved with those extracurriculars, explaining to them about Ryan's uniquely beautiful brain and what is working for him. They telling me what is working at school. We are a team. And if you're not a team working together like a village, way back when we were living in villages, when you had all kinds of people supporting children being raised and families, this is why he is so successful, to the point that now when he is in eighth grade, not only is he out of his special education support rooms, but he is in advanced classes in some areas. He has no more one-to-one support. He is literally scoring high on the reading test. Now, are we perfect? No, we still have some social things that we're navigating. I don't know if I ever want any of my kids to be perfect, but he is a completely different student, a completely different human, and it is because of the village. So the village mentality talk happens after I'm at an elementary school assembly. I'll go back that night or the next week. If it's not local to me, let's say I'm here in Philly, let's say I go to Texas. I will then get on a Zoom. I would come home here and then I would get on a Zoom and do the village mentality. But I love to do it in person. If it's for a team, the parents come in right afterwards and I do a village mentality talk. The kids are gone. I explain to them a little bit about Ryan. I give them some tools so they can support their kids, because when a different voice talks to your kids, it lands different. They will actually see the little bubbles there on Zoom. If the neighbor tells Ryan something that I'm saying very similar words, it will land different, because just developmentally, that's how it works. And that's what the village is. But I can give parents little tools. This is how you can support your student athlete, your fourth grader, your student. That gets real deep in the village mentality. Parents often share and get emotional, and it is really close to my heart. This isn't something that I charge extra for. It's just part of what I do. And I am really grateful that principals support it, that coaches, athletic directors, that they all support this, booster programs, those parents, because a car ride home after a practice or after a tough game can make or break your kid. And if you could learn a couple little tools from me, complete game changer.
Nice.
So that's what the village mentality is. And if it's just as, if not important, more important in some ways than what I'm teaching the kids.
Right. Okay. But I'm going to ask something, the obvious, I think, that what many of my listeners might be asking, which is, okay, what if I don't have those kind of people at my school or around me?
So glad that you mentioned that, because I love this so much, Lucy, that I am doing some things right now that is going to allow me to roll out this not only the village mentality, but the champion within programs to specifically schools where it's going to change lives. And it's starting with some t-shirts that I'm selling that will fund, but also some collaborations with some pretty epic people. And I can't
Awesome.
say too much about that, but what I am going to say is when, let's say, a big company books me, part of booking me will be pro bono. I go into these schools in your area. Let's say I'm coming into Boston and someone books me. I'm going into as many schools as I can. If I'm there for a keynote for that day, if I can get to a couple elementary schools the next day or the day before I give the keynote, however, that's what's going to happen. And that's going to be part of the way the champion within grows, because I really want this to be something that gets into the brains of our kids as early as possible. So you're right, not all schools are going to be able to afford some of this, but they need it. So big companies are already reaching out, and I'm really grateful. I can't say too much, but I will say that it's going to help student athletes and students and teachers. And I'm getting to work with some pretty epic people on this, and we're gonna announce it soon. But it's not just a transaction, it's life-changing.
So you're working on a way to get the village out to more school.
The village and the champion within.
Okay.
Because some schools, if they're in low income, and that's where I actually taught. It was a low income school district. So that's part of the reason why I feel this way. I saw students that, it wasn't called the champion within them, but I saw students that when I did these things with them, and when other teachers who I was lucky to work alongside with did these types of things and help students tap into that inner greatness, the possibilities were just endless. And I see what they're doing now, and it just makes my heart so happy. And if that can happen for one kid in every school that I go to, success.
Yeah, it's a great time of life to be getting this for them. Yeah.
And they'll listen to me more likely than Ryan would listen to me.
Of course.
It's just developmentally appropriate because parents and coaches will say, I'm saying the same thing. I said,
Right.
I know you are. I know you are. But they see you, even their own classroom teacher, they see them all the time. And when some other woman comes rolling in here saying something very similar, but, is wearing Nikes and, getting real excited with the red carpet, it lands a little different and they don't roll their eyes like my teenagers do. I often say, I wish I could have someone come talk to them. I'm like, hello. But, I think they are absorbing a little here, a little bit.
So what do you start off with to get their attention to make this group want to listen to you?
So I was a teacher for 20 years. So I really do know how to command a room. It's just part of who I am. And what I often do, if I'm at an elementary school, for example, what I will often do is say, I want you to look around, the people to your right, the people to your left, maybe you. There's people in here that have really big dreams and goals, and they can achieve them. We do a really short visualization. Some of them buy in, some of them don't. But then right after, so I get them quiet and I get them, they're like, wait a minute. And I say, if you don't want to be successful, that's okay, but someone else does. So I pull them in a little bit and I say, I can train your brain. I can train your brain. And I'm not going to lie. The kids do love when I roll in with my Nikes. They love seeing my Nike sneakers, which at first I leaned into I have to be wearing high heels and looking like a speaker. And then I thought, I was a health and phys ed teacher. I love sneakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I rock my Nikes everywhere I go, and the kids really do love that. So maybe that's an attention getter too. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, I really want to just tell you I appreciate you being here. And I know that probably a number of people in the audience now want to follow you, hear more about you, know when this big event is going to start happening. So Kate, how can people keep in touch with you?
Well, I am on all of the places. I have my own podcast called The Champion Within. You could listen to that. We should talk on that one too, by the way. We should definitely do an episode together. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Kate McCauley there. I can give you the links if you want, but on Instagram, I am the.champion_within. I had to put all those in there because I think it was taken the other way. Those are the main places, I would say, LinkedIn and Instagram, and then podcast. I do have YouTube. I will throw some things up on there. I sometimes neglect that, but you can follow that too if you wanted. That's just Kate McCauley. I think it's called The Champion Within on there too.
Excellent. Okay. So I will. I'll put links in the description below so people can keep in touch with you, because it sounds like what you're doing is going to be so important. Thank you for doing the important work that you're doing in the world. And thanks for sharing a little piece of your story with us. I really appreciate it, Kate.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful to talk with you.